Hello, it's the Comics Kid 2099 of Sector 2814, and I am here after about a month to review the next episode of Young Justice. I know it's been a while, and I really don't have any excuses. I was planning on watching this episode of Young Justice the night that I wound up watching the 2011 unaired pilot for Wonder Woman. So just know that if you've been waiting for a long time for this review, I was planning on doing it a little bit earlier, and I basically got distracted doing other things for this channel. But I'm here now to talk about the episode Welcome to Happy Harbor. If you're not keeping up with this series, the first two episodes were actually combined to be a big 45-minute pilot, so when I was reviewing that, I no doubt called it the first episode of Young Justice. And if you're looking for my review of episode 2, it's actually part 2 of that first episode. So the second episode of Young Justice is episode 3, which is Welcome to Happy Harbor. Okay, so we've got that sorted out. Good. This episode opens with Speedy busting some kind of drugs deal or weapons deal or something, and I can tell you right now, after 2 episodes of Young Justice, I am already sick and tired of this character. When is he gonna find Cheshire and live happily ever after or something like that? I'm just so sick and tired of the angst, and really it's just not even clever or funny or charming. There's really no reason for this character to be in this show. He confirms a question that I had in a previous review about whether he was cutting his ties to the Justice League or to all of the superheroes, such as his mentor Green Arrow. And in this episode, he says that he is tired of Green Arrow and he's tired of the Justice League, so I have to assume that he's no longer talking to any of them except for when they seek him out to talk to him like they do in this episode. So then that brings me to my next question. Where is Speedy getting all of his arrows? I know, it's a really huge nitpick for me. It's just, where is he getting all of his arrows? If he's no longer communicating with Green Arrow, I'm kind of curious where he gets the exploding arrow, the boxing arrow, the handcuff arrow, the foam arrow. Where is he getting all of this stuff? I mean, he's not a billionaire like Green Arrow, is he? So, in theory, he should just have, like, normal arrows. Or better yet, he shouldn't have any equipment at all if he doesn't have the money to pay for it. Just some food for thought. And now, we tour the Clubhouse. I finally figured out what it is about this show that just really isn't gelling with me. And it was in the back of my mind when I was watching the first episode, but it just wasn't clicking with me until I was watching this episode. This series just really isn't any fun. About 80% of the characters that we have here are super angsty, and I just can't get behind that. Characters like Aqualad, Superboy, and Speedy, they're all just so broody, and I don't care. I don't care about characters who yell at each other and talk in that very melodramatic tone. When you say, now we tour the Clubhouse, that shouldn't be something that sounds like you just said, your uncle just died. It should have a little bit of levity in it, shouldn't it? And unfortunately, comic relief characters like Robin and Kid Flash, and to a lesser degree Martian Manhunter, they're not really balancing this thing out. I mean, sometimes Robin and Kid Flash try to say funny things, but usually they get on my nerves for entirely different reasons. What I really wish is that this show could somehow give us characters who feel three-dimensional. For example, that means that Superboy doesn't need to be the brooding, angsty one. He needs to actually have personality and depth. And likewise, Kid Flash needs to be something other than the annoying, funny one who's really not that funny, and we all wish that Deathstroke the Terminator would come and shoot his kneecaps off. Say what you will about the predecessor to this show, the Teen Titans, at least those characters all felt three-dimensional, they all fulfilled different purposes in the show, and even though Robin was definitely angsty about 95% of the time, he also had other dimensions to himself. I mean, it wasn't shown all the time, but even if he was two-dimensional and just the angsty one, everyone else felt very fleshed out most of the time, and I really didn't feel like it was just angst, and a little bit more angst. A lot like this show. When is this show going to get over Kid Flash crushing on Martian Manhunter, Martian Manhunter crushing on Superboy, and if this show continues down this direction, I can only assume Martian Manhunter crushing on Aqualad, Aqualad crushing on Aquagirl, Aquagirl crushing on Robin, etc., etc., etc. I really do not care. If you actually give me characters who are in a relationship, then fine, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see these characters build their relationship and grow as characters. But that's not what we're getting here, is it? What we're getting here is just characters who are looking at each other wistfully and saying, yeah, I'd like to tap that, and really, that's all we're getting. We're not getting any growth, we're just seeding a possible relationship that's probably not even going to pan out. Like, ever. I don't really see Kid Flash getting together with Martian Lady Hunter because, A, I don't know why Kid Flash likes Martian Lady Hunter except that she's a girl. Really, I don't think you could even ask him, why do you like that girl? He likes her because she's the chick on the team. If there was another girl on the team, he'd probably like her too. I'm willing to give a little bit of a pass to the Martian Lady Hunter here because she's telepathic. She can read minds, and she can see deep into your soul. So, in theory, she can see something in Superboy that makes him, I don't know, desirable as someone that she'd want to date, when all I can see him as is the brooding, angsty one who brings teen girls to the show. This idea of characters who just have crushes on each other for no apparent reason would work a lot better if I knew who these characters were. If I know who Kid Flash is, like, you know, what his personality traits are, stuff like that, then I wouldn't mind seeing that he likes this girl, because then that could, in theory, tell me some things about her. If he likes X, Y, and Z, and he also likes her, then in theory, that means that maybe she embodies certain aspects of X, Y, and Z. Or alternatively, she likes certain things that he also likes. But unfortunately, we're not getting any of that here. We're just getting teen characters who want to kiss each other or something. This is something that occurred to me when I was reviewing the previous episode, but since I had so much that I wanted to talk about with that episode, I decided to leave it for another time. And that thing is the definition of a character's powers. I really think this show needs to give us some kind of, yes, this character has this power, and this power, but this character does not have this power. I'm not saying that we need to spend 10 minutes explaining the science behind Kid Flash's super speed or anything. If you just tell us Kid Flash has super speed, then that's fine with me. In fact, in one part of this episode that I didn't completely hate, Robin tells Martian Lady Hunter that the Kid Flash has attempted to vibrate himself through solid objects, because in theory he's going so fast that he can just vibrate between the molecules or something. And I'm okay with that because that's something that the Flashes have done in the comics. But then we see Martian Lady Hunter. Now, since she's from Mars and the Martian Manhunter's from Mars, I just have to assume that they both have the same power set, right? And Martian Manhunter, since we've only seen him for about 3 seconds in this series so far, all I have to assume is that he has the powers that he has in the comic books. So that means telepathy, being able to phase through solid objects, invisibility, stuff like that. However, we see that Martian Lady Hunter here, she apparently has telekinesis. I'm fairly certain that the Martian Manhunter has never displayed telekinesis before. And if you just give us a really quick throwaway line like, oh, Martian women have telekinesis, Martian men don't, that'd be really stupid, but at least that'd be an explanation for why she has this power. And I can only assume the reason she has this power is because later in the episode, she is transformed as the Red Tornado, and she wants to pretend to be the Red Tornado. So then she mimics his tornado creation powers by telekinetically stirring up the air. It's really kind of bogus, but I guess they kind of set it up by showing that she does have telekinesis, even though I don't really understand why this character has telekinesis. On the other side of things, Aqualad. Aqualad has electricity? Why? Why does this character have electric blasts or whatever it is that he does? In theory, he should have the same powers that Aquaman has. That is, swimming underwater, enhanced invulnerability, enhanced strength, you know, things that would come to you when you live far, far underwater in the pressures of the deep, and maybe talking to fish telepathically or whatever. What he should not have is electric powers. That should be the power of Zappy Man. That should not be the power of Aquaman, somebody who is an aquatic superhero. This episode ends with a reveal that Dr. T.O. Morrow has sent some kind of robot to test the Red Tornado or something. I actually have no idea what's going on here. And in fact, I didn't even know the name of this guy. I have lots and lots of comic books. Like, a whole lot. You've seen some of them. And I have only got one comic book that Dr. T.O. Morrow even appears in. I had to Google this guy's name just to figure out who he was when he showed up in this episode. This is a problem. If a character shows up in an episode and he's supposed to be important, and in this episode I assume he is since it's treated like a big reveal when he shows up on screen, then you should really tell the audience who this character is. I assume there are many non-comic book reading people who are watching this show, and I'm assuming there's quite a few people who do read comics who watch this show. But out of all those people, how many of them do you think actually know who Dr. T.O. Morrow is? I read lots of comic books, and I barely know who he is. And how does this relate to Cadmus? I thought Cadmus was supposed to be the big series-long arc. Like, they were going to be doing something about corrupting the light or something like that. I mean, that was the big tease that we got in the first episode, right? Granted, most of the time, when a series has a big, long series arc, it introduces that arc in the first episode, and then maybe for the next 2 or 3 episodes after that, they kind of stay away from the arc as they try to develop some of the characters. And that would be fine if this episode was actually devoting time to developing these characters. But it's really not. At the end of this episode, I don't know a whole lot more about any of these characters than I did in the previous episode. Well, that's not true. I know now that I really dislike Martian Manhunter, and I wish that she wasn't a part of this team, but that's not what they were going for. To make this more applicable to the entire series, this show needs to tailor itself to non-comic book readers. That is, people who can recognize that these characters are superheroes and can come in and watch an episode without having to know every character in the DC universe. If I showed this episode to my dad, at the end of the episode he'd say, "Who's that guy? Why is he important?" And then I'd have to say, "Well, I don't know, because if we're just going by the information in this episode, then I really don't know." It's just the same with anything else. If I read a series of books and then I go watch the movie and take someone who hasn't read the books to see the movie, they can't be expected to know everything that I know when I've read the books. And likewise, the people behind this show really shouldn't be able to expect the people who don't read comic books to suddenly know who Dr. T.O. Morrow is when he shows up at the end of this episode. Ultimately, I guess I'm going to keep going with this series, although I have to say I'm really not enjoying this series at all. I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep going before I stop. I'm going to say episode 7. If I'm still not enjoying this series by episode 7, I'm just going to drop it. There are plenty of other shows that I could be reviewing and wasting my time with, and I really don't want to keep watching the show if I'm just not going to have fun watching it. Having said that, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'm going to try to get the review for the next episode out a little quicker than another month from now. So, I'll see you next time.